Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk. So today I'm going to talk about smartphone-based sustainable socioeconomic solutions for better management of health and well-being. And I'm an assistant professor at University of Fordham in New York. It's a great pleasure to be here and share our experience, our research with this international community. We all are working together in a bigger goal to achieve the bigger goal. So hope this presentation will catch some pieces that you might be interested. First of all, the sustainable healthcare system is actually a combo. It comes with different pieces. So you can think of social society or social is a one component, then environment, and definitely economy. So you want to develop something that gonna go sustain over time, and that should be environment friendly as well as it should be economically it's good solution. Means it should be cheap, it should be widely accessible for a larger population or larger community. So today I'm going to talk about some of the solutions that we are developing for health management as well as well-being management. So I hope we will see some good pieces over here. Let's move forward. So the health history, the healthcare, the way we started a long time back when the physicians used to come to house and monitor, see the check the physical conditions of a patient. Afterward, we move a little bit advanced, so the things have been changing, and there you can see we start visiting our physicians. But at the same time, there are other parties that start coming around, insurance as well as other lawyers and other parties that are starting to accumulate in the system. So the system itself is getting more packed with a lot of components. So these days, we are expecting the healthcare to serve mass population, but at the same time, it should be cost efficient and burden free, or at least reduce the burden that we have now. So in that direction, we will share our research and our findings with all of you. So of course, artificial intelligence that has brought a lot. It has a lot of prospects in terms of the opportunity in different sectors of our life, including the health sector and the healthcare. So you want to develop solutions that gonna go stay for a certain amount of time, and that gonna help a mass population. AI makes this possible. And you can think of a situation in our real life when we have some devices like a smartphone and wearables that we are using 24/7, which are really easy to use and our 24/7 companion. Those devices have a lot of sensing and computational capabilities, even though they have some limitations. But AI can make these things possible to monitor our health conditions and our well-being at a 24/7 scale. And that's what we are trying to achieve. So some of my solutions, our research findings, I will share in this direction. So in a point of care technology, you can think of there are different sides or different parties. So someone developing device, someone developing the sensors, and someone developing the liquids or the chemical materials that gonna go test different types of health conditions. And our part here is the last component where we are working on smart devices like smartphones and wearables, because we believe those are the technologies that already exist in the market and that has really good sensing capabilities as well as some sort of computation powers that could leverage AI tools, or that could use some sort of computing power in the cloud, back and forth, exchanging information between the device and the server. So we will show you some solutions, share some of our findings in this direction. First of all, the first project that I am going to share with you is cough symptom monitoring. So these days, cough and its this word, the cough and its association with COVID-19 is kind of buzzing word these days. We're always floating around this word. What are the symptoms that people have? And cough is one of the most prominent symptoms. So it's not only cough and other things. I'll share more about this. And those symptoms are can be measured using smartphone sensing capabilities. That I will share a little bit later. But first of all, the project here I'm sharing with you is to monitor cough based on smartphone sensing capabilities. And what you see when someone is coughing, we record the signal from microphone, and the signal actually looks like the third diagram that you see here. So different diseases like COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, have association with wheezing and coughing and their patterns, of course. And these diseases are really fatal. You can think of like 200 million people across the globe affected by COPD annually. Similarly, 3 million people die annually because of this COPD. So WHO, World Health Organization, has already listed COPD as the third leading cause of death worldwide. And this is one sort of inflammatory respiratory diseases where your airflow is basically disrupted because of the change of the aperture of the air tube, your vocal tube. So next, asthma. Asthma is also one disease, which is, of course, inflammatory respiratory disease. And it also has a way we can characterize it by breathlessness and coughing. It also affects around 300 million people around the globe, and 4 million people die prematurely. So these are really severe diseases, respiratory diseases. Around 10% of disability adjusted life years are lost because of these respiratory diseases across the globe, according to WHO. So you can think this is really a severe, these are really severe diseases that we need to take care. However, unfortunately, we cannot cure the patients with these diseases. The good thing, we can treat, and proper treatment can reduce the progression of those diseases, as well as can improve the quality of patients, the quality of life of the patients. So this is our goal. We want to help people to improve their health conditions and control, but unfortunately, we cannot cure the disease. So there are other inflammatory respiratory diseases, as we all have seen in recent time, like the transmissible respiratory diseases, coronaviruses, and all other diseases like MERS, SARS, and recent time the COVID-19, which started from a small city town, then spread over the entire world, and it becomes a global pandemic. So these diseases, like the coronaviruses, also have some relation with breathing difficulty and coughing patterns. So knowing those breathing difficulties means when someone has difficulty in breathing from their smartphone data, and their coughing patterns could really help. And you can think of this is also really important when we were talking about human to human transmissible disease. And so we want to measure somehow, some way, where we really want to keep the patients away from other healthy people so that it's not going to go transmit. Most common promising approaches so far, and the gold standard is a self-reported survey for cough pattern monitoring. And the pattern is actually the frequency and the time of cough has association with the progression of inflammatory respiratory diseases. So for example, COPD, there is a test called COPD assessment test, or CAT, which is basically a self-reported survey where the physicians used to ask the patients how many times they cough and did they cough during the sleep time. But you can think of this is really difficult to capture all this data for a 24/7 system life. And also our recall bias is the issue. We sometimes forget, sometimes it's not possible to capture all the times, like if you are sleeping. And also there is a dispersity of data. That's why self-reported scope monitoring symptoms are so unpredictable. So we want to develop something to continuously monitor and remotely monitor cough symptoms, but using smartphones. So you can think of this is going to be an objective way of reporting cough symptoms instead of the self-reported mechanism to reduce the limitations. As we know, self-reported symptoms like reporting has limitations like recall bias. We cannot really recall all the coughs that we have done or we did in a day, right? Similarly, biases, our cognitive bias is also one factor. And of course, some situations like sleep time, it's not possible to remember whether someone is coughing or not, right? And definitely reliability is another issue. So in order to measure the coughing patterns or to capture the coughing patterns from a smartphone microphone, we first need to know the signal or the quantification of the cough. So we look up the physiology of cough. And what you see in the diagram is basically there are two types, most promisingly, there are two types of cough events. There can be multiple or many more, but these two are very promising or very common that researchers have been relying on most frequently. So you see the first one has three phases, phase 1 to 3. The first phase is basically explosive phase, so where your vocal cord has a really high vibration because the cord is closed, the tube is closed, and the glottis is basically closed, and the air inside the tube is just getting high pressure to open up the valve. So when the valve opens, it's an explosion. That's why you heard some noise, and which is basically first phase, followed by a decay. So it's gradually decaying the sound level or the intensity of the sound. And sometimes you can hear another sound at the end, but this is definitely low intensity compared to the first. You may not. So these are the most common patterns. And sometimes these patterns can be repetitive that we see in the bottom. And when they come as a burst, we call them episode. When they are single, we call them event. Now I want to show you something, how well we can perceive whether someone is coughing or not from our physical perception or our perception from our ears. So here I'm going to show you two clips. One is noise mixed, another is pure cough clip. But before that, let me show you on the left panel, you can see two diagrams like cough and air conditioner that I tried here. So cough, you can see the power spectral distribution. You can see the cough is already in the different range than the air conditioner. So air conditioner is really sharp, it's really high in terms of power compared to the cough. So we see some difference between the noise and the signal we want to capture. So in the right panel, you see three diagrams. The first one is the pure cough. So we recorded cough when someone is away from any sort of noise, air conditioner or anything else. The one in the middle is purely air conditioner noise. And the one at the bottom is a mixture of air conditioner noise and the cough. So I'm going to first play the pure cough. This is very clear. You will hear that. So you can hear, right? It's very clear. But when I mix the noise, air conditioner noise with the cough in the bottom diagram, the signal almost looks like the one in the middle. So our visual perceptions makes it really erroneous. We cannot really distinguish cough from the air conditioner. However, if we go and listen, our auditory system is really good and great to make a distinction between these two signals. Let's listen together. So you had some sort of noise, right? But still you can hear one is coughing. So we tried to see what actually the features that our hearing power is using, our ears are using. So what we have seen, there is a male cepstral frequency coefficient, which is basically our audible range. So we use different filter banks to cut and get the signal into our audible range. It's a log linear scale than the simple linear scale. And when you do that transformation and feature computation, what we have seen, the cough and snore, as you see here, the red dots are the cough and the blue dots are the snore. So we try to see whether two different type of human sound are distinctive, can they be separable? So using the Disney diagram, we found, yes, they are separable and they are different. So using this feature and the plot, we got a hope that our machine learning approaches can probably play a role to distinct or separate this out. So the model you see here is a generalized model. So we use leave one out approach, means we had a 25 subject pool. Out of the 25 subject, we use 24 subject, which is n-1, to train the model. So once we train the model, we tested the model on the rest or the remaining subject. So this way, we actually developed 25 models and tested on 25 single subjects. So from there, what we obtain, the SVM, we tried different types of classifiers along with their hyperparameters and the optimizations. We performed that, but we have found SVM with RBF kernel and gamma 1 and cos 1 performed the best. And we obtained 0.86 accuracy with F1 score 0.86. And the area under the curve, we found 0.94. And this was a binary classifier, which was separating out cough and snore. So then we try to see if we have different data sets and if we apply the data when different types of background noise are mixed with the original cough and snore, how the model can perform. So our goal was to see the sustainability or robustness of a model in different environments. And what you see here, we got a drop in performance, and the SVM models of the RBF or the random forest, they're really consistently getting good performance around 0.8. Well, still they are below 0.86. That was the accuracy we obtained from validation using the same data set, but training and test was not same. So we did leave one out subject validation. So one subject was kept for testing and rest of the n-1 subject was used for training. So you can see totally the two data set was mutually exclusive. However, since we didn't see any noise effect in there, so the data was all about the cough and snore, and the accuracy or the F1 we got around 0.86. We got a drop when we mix the actual signal with different types of background sound like air conditioner, dog bark, siren, AC, and dog bark. So we actually tried to see if multiple sounds come together, multiple background noise like air conditioner, dog bark, AC siren, dog bark, and siren, and all together. So as you can expect, there is a drop when you have multiple signals and there is more uncertainty, which is understandable, of course, because your classifier gonna go actually will have a hard time because the signal is not only imputed by one type of sound, but also multiple sounds together. And there are also one distinctive feature here we can see. Air conditioner, when it's a continuous noise, some of the other noise like dog bark is a spurious. So it's a intermittent. That's why you can see the different effect on the results. Next, I'm gonna go talk about another topic, well-being. So we want to also foster people's well-being, and we want to promote well-being using smartphone-based framework or smartphone-based sustainable solutions here as well. So The reason we are very interested to do that, so our overall health and well-being is not only our health care when we have disease or when we have some problems. It's not only that, but also it involves our mental and emotional health. So during this COVID outbreak, most of us are locked inside, I mean, indoors. So this is really a hard time for all of us. And during this time, you can see there are a lot of articles there are a lot of news coming around. Uh, what happens means there are a lot of family crises and also emotional breakdown. So mental health is definitely a severe thing. Uh, though we cannot go and we cannot involve in social engagement, the term we are hearing these days, socially distant, right? Social distancing is a very acute thing. But our approach or our way of helping people is to see, can there still be a way that can make a alternative path so that people can still find some way to improve their emotion or their well-being. The data set that we looked up is not actually COVID data, but still this shows the promise and this shows the hope that, or the factors that should be considered and the patterns that should be looked up. This is a limited study so far, but we'll see some of the findings and share some of the findings which can show more promise for future. So we are trying to see how phone call behaviors uh, can be predicted, how it changes over with different factors. Mostly we will talk here our spatial temporal analysis. So spatially like geographical factors as well as temporal context. And the reason we analyzed phone call behaviors, there have been some research where researchers found uh, phone call behavior or phone call could be a way to mitigate your emotional breakdown. If you get a phone call from a friend and that brings good news, good hope, at least if you can socially, when you have a social distancing, if you can reach out to your friends, your family, your relatives, that can still facilitate some sort of engagement, and that can give you some sort of soothness your mind in your mind. So mental peace can be achieved via communication, and the particular communication we're talking about here is a phone call, which is of course a way to do even during this COVID outbreak. So we looked up data, 3 semesters data. This is a long data set that was collected from University of Notre Dame. So the long data set, what you see here is basically time series. So the continuous time progression, you see sometimes so the two factors we looked up here is the call count and call duration. So we try to see, is it like college students, like the freshmen, when they start their academic year, they leave their parents, they leave their school friends, they start new friend circle. How does that matter or does affect their phone call behavior in terms of call duration and call count? So what we have seen is it's not steady, it's varying. It's sometimes going peak, sometimes going valley, so it's going up and down. So that tells us there is something that we need to investigate much further, fine-grained. So we looked up geographical distribution. And these are the most common 4 or 5 types of the places that we looked up or grouped the phone calls. So we try to see the phone calls that come from dormitories, dining, uh, then class buildings, athletic places, outdoor activities, or any other types of indoor places. So in the left diagram, we investigated call duration. So the circles, the bubbles that you see, is basically showing you the duration in terms of the circles aperture. So if it's a higher call duration in a place, you'll get a higher aperture compared to the other. So what we see here, most of the long calls are basically the calls that initiated or originated when someone is in dormitories, which is kind of intuitive. We also see people, students make phone call outdoor, dining, uh, class buildings. These are class buildings. Basically, sometimes students go and sit in there. They do group studies. This is not absolutely the class time when someone's sitting in the classroom. We also looked up, there are other places like other types of facilities where student travel, go visit, and there you can also see the call durations have some impact. Athletic places, definitely, that's the least common places for phone call. On the right diagram, you can see the call frequency, how many calls someone is getting or initiating in a day or in an hour, in a unit time. So we have found, also kind of intuitive, that dorms are the places where students make most of the phone calls, most frequent phone calls. But interestingly, what you can see in the right diagram compared to left, the outdoor places are the places where most of the times students make phone call. What does that mean? Means when they're walking between buildings or facilities, they are making phone calls. So that shows some sort of indication, means where students go and talk mostly or get socially engaged. So the places you see, the dorms are the most common places for longer calls as well as frequent calls. That actually shows us hope that the behavior, phone call behavior, communication behavior has association with geography, and in particular context to COVID-19 outbreak, when most of us are stuck in either home or apartment or places like that. There's something we can consider, means we can utilize the communication or phone call behaviors to improve our well-being or mental health. We also look up the temporal distribution. Of course, this temporal distribution is for this particular student group, which may or may not fit for all generations, all sort of populations. So before generalizing this finding, we have to look up the other sort of population. So what we can see, the students in the left diagram, the call duration, what you see, there's a climbing up trend. So from morning to afternoon to evening, they are getting more engaged with phone calls. And night, of course, it's going down because they are sleeping, very intuitive. But compared to morning, why afternoon and evening is high? So most of the students, they are freshmen, they have morning classes and afternoon classes sometimes. But evening time is the most free time when they get more time for themselves. Definitely they are studying, but they also have more time for social engagement. So this could also help us to design and trigger intervention to let someone know their phone call behavior pattern and how can they use that to improve their emotional emotional state, like they can improve their well-being or mental health. So if you look up the right diagram, the call frequency, there we can see that the most frequent calls are in afternoon and evening, which also makes sense because of the earlier time in the class in the morning compared to that afternoon and evening are a little bit flexible, so they make more frequent. And definitely night is less because of people sleeping. But still you can see some bars in there because some people are really kind of night owl. They keep talking. So it could be very much personalized. The result we presented here is a population level, but it could be very much person dependent. And that's why personalized intervention could improve an individual's health or well-being. All right, finally, our work, our research is to develop smartphone-based AI tools or AI applications. So we want to develop some agents that can be deployed large scale, of course, using the device that we use every day. And the best device that we use every day or daily life is the handheld smartphone. also some wearables. So our work is to deploy our agents or our application at a large scale using the handheld mobile phones or wearables. And most importantly, this is a very optimal solution in terms of cost, because we really don't need to buy anything new. Our own smartphones are enough. And also one important aspect to be noted is the patient and physician communication. Since we are collecting 24/7 data remotely that monitors patients' health conditions and can be shared with the physicians remotely, this remote health could really help the physicians to provide personalized feedback, and this may help to avoid circumstances when someone need to hospitalize. Means if we can do this health monitoring earlier, and if we can detect those symptoms earlier than later, we could save a lot. And this could eventually reduce the burden on our healthcare system, as well as can reduce the cost, the overall cost, which has been rising rapidly over the last few decades. So we want to make sure our solutions gonna go environmental friendly and sustainable, robust, low cost, large scale deployable. Definitely should promote the patient physician communication in a better way, and cost effective. Finally, it should empower the citizen, empower the individuals to help them better manage their health and well-being. And in that direction, we want to foster equity and equality, both. So I'm stopping here. Thank you all for your time and listening to my talk. I'll be very happy to go over if you have any questions as a follow-up. I can help you or can be with you as a follow-up. Thank you.